Today's date is July 19, 2016. My name is Leah Michelle Cash, and I'm interviewing Dr. Mildred Henry for the Archiving History in the Inland Empire Project. Her name is spelled, if you could spell your name for us, Dr. Henry.
Mildred. Maiden name Dalton, Dalton. Last name Henry, Henry.
Thank you, Dr. Henry, for taking the time out to conduct this interview with us. So, tell us a little bit about your early life and your childhood. We know that you come from Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Actually, I came from Tamo, which is even smaller. Tamo, Arkansas is a little area where the bus stop slows down to throw off the paper and keeps going. We called it the little one-horse town. But at Tamo, we had a farm. As a child, in my early childhood days, we were lucky. I was one of the members of the family, Dalton family. My grandfather, Ulysses Grant Dalton, Sr., and had established a farm, and it's a long story. And when I came along, we had a cotton gin and a general store. One of the few, if not the only, African-American family with a gin and a store in southeast Arkansas. I grew up with entrepreneurs. My mom was a teacher and a musician, so we were programmed to be educated, to know we had to educate. We had to go and get an education. We had to stay in school. We had to be entrepreneurs. We had to be independent. It's a long history, but along the way as a child, I remember us being burned out. We faced racism in Arkansas. Our farm, incidentally, was located 19 miles south of Pine Bluff and 1 mile south of Tamo on the main highway, Highway 65. There was a cotton gin north of us, 1 mile, operated by a white gentleman. A cotton gin 3 miles south of us at Grady, also operated by white individuals. It was determined that the gentleman south of us paid someone to come in and burn us out, burn our gin, try to burn the store, try to burn the house. As a child, I remember standing at the window and seeing the flames of the store, which was a few yards north of our house, and seeing the store burning. I saw the men trying to carry buckets of water to try to keep the flames from consuming our house, which was so close to the store. They were unsuccessful in saving the store, but they saved the house. And these are my memories. I remember playing near the cotton gin before it was burned. They did burn the cotton gin. I remember playing at the gin and playing in the cotton as the farmers brought their cotton to be ginned. It would be stored in what we call a cotton house before it went to Pine Bluff to be ginned and put into cotton bales. I remember jumping into this cotton. These are my experiences living on the farm as a child. I remember before the store was completely burned that we catered to the neighborhood people. They would come to our store and buy. My grandfather was able to provide credit for those individuals in the neighborhood who could not buy food. He would provide the credit until they had ginned their cotton, until they had made their crops at the end of the year. And that's how they were able to survive. Here again was the jealousy of people in the area that didn't want us to be
People
successful.
of color to...
People of color to be successful, people of color to achieve. And so these are some of, I could go on and on. Going to school, kids had to walk from below us about 10 miles. I can remember a family, one was a beautiful family. They would walk to school 1 mile, 2 miles north of us. We were lucky to have a car, a truck. so many of them would walk to our house and then they could ride from there to school. But these were the experiences I had as a child.
So now, where were you located in your family line, with your siblings? Were you the oldest, the youngest,
I
or
was
in the
the
middle?
youngest. I was,
You were the baby.
as the song goes, the little rhyme, I'm my mama's baby child, don't you think I'm sweet? We had to learn this little rhyme. But I was the youngest of 4.
Okay. So now, as you were growing up, what were some of your dreams?
My dreams. Actually, I wanted to be an airline pilot. Not airline. I wanted to fly an airplane. I said I would never be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. My aunt was a teacher. Everybody I knew was a teacher. And we had to grade papers. Mother would give us a key, and we had to grade the kids' papers. And I said, I will never be a teacher. That turned out to be one of the most important occupations I have had. But those were some of my dreams that I saw. I don't know if I wanted to be a movie star, but we'd go to the movies. But I just mostly wanted to be a doctor once. Thought I wanted to be a nurse until I saw all the blood that they had to go through, and I said, no, don't want to be a nurse. So my dream, I guess, was to be an entrepreneur and to help others. And I always wanted to do that. Own my business, maybe.
So Pine Bluff and Tamo, Arkansas is miles away from San Bernardino, California. How is it that you winded up in the Inland Empire?
Long story, very long story. In Pine Bluff, or let's say in Tamo, I had an affliction with my feet where I could not walk for about 8 years. Every summer I could not walk. And so people wondered if I would be able to retain my grade. Backing up a little bit, on the farm, you could not go to school 9 months out of the year. Blacks could only go to school about 5 months. The school was closed the other 4 months, so you could pick the cotton or chop the cotton. My parents determined, no, our kids are going to go to school 9 months so they can be competitive. So they bought a house in town, in Pine Bluff, and that was my first experience in the city, living in the so-called city at that time. And we went to high school, Merrill High School, which was the high school for that whole area. Anybody at any of the towns, the surrounding area that wanted to go to high school came to Pine Bluff to go to Merrill High School. So I went to Merrill High School, and I went there 11 years. But then with the foot affliction, I was treated in St. Louis, Missouri. And they found a way to help cure, not cure, but control the problems I had with my feet. So for every 2 weeks, I had to go back to Homer Phillips Hospital in St. Louis to be treated for my feet. I ended up enrolling in school there so that the trip would not be necessary. And speaking of the trip, let me say that this was my encounter with riding on the back of the train. Because blacks, African Americans or Negroes, whatever label you want to put on us, at that time had to sit in a car, special car, on the back of the train. And I had to do that for every 2 weeks that I went to St. Louis. When I finished high school in St. Louis, Missouri, then went back to Pine Bluff for 2 years of college, and I got married. After 2 years of college, I was in the college choir, and I got married in 2 years. Moved to St. Paul, Minnesota with a family. I had 5 children. I was in an abusive situation, abusive marriage. It turned abusive. I divorced. First, I lost my oldest son. I lost a child, and I dreamed that I had lost a second child. And I took my kids and headed for Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I'm not going to stay in this abusive situation. Went back to Arkansas and went back to school. So I went to school, to college, to finish my degree, and my children went to school. All of them finished high school. All of them finished college. When I finished high school, I finished my college degree, I was employed as a music teacher in the Pine Bluff system. We did that for about 3 years, and then I decided to go to graduate school. got my master's, went back to Arkansas, and was employed as a counselor in the Watson Chapel School District, and for a little over a year. Then I went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff with the Upward Bound program and worked there 2 years. Then I decided to go get my PhD. Got my PhD from Southern Illinois University and then headed for California.
With your PhD?
With my PhD. The Dean of the School of Education interviewed me in the airport, the Lambert Airport in St. Louis. And let me share this. Every step of the way I was told I could not. I was too old, I was this, I was that. Nobody would accept me in college because I couldn't compete with the younger people. Every step of the way somebody said no, and every step of the way I said, oh yes, I will, I can. Dean Garcia came to interview me. He hired me on the spot in 1983. Before I had received my PhD, I didn't get my degree until spring. He hired me earlier in the year. And in August 1983, I came to San Bernardino.
So when you say dean, are you talking about Dr. Ernie Garcia?
Dr. Ernie Garcia, Dean Ernie Garcia was Dean of the School of Education
of Cal
at
State.
California State University, San Bernardino. He hired me, and that is how I ended up in San Bernardino.
And then when you came to San Bernardino, what were your expectations? What were your challenges?
My expectations was that I would make a contribution. In my cultural environment and knowing my background from whence I came, I figured I needed to do something. I didn't just come to teach or to be at the university. I came to get involved and to give a hand up to those that needed a hand up. That was my expectation or my desire. I didn't really know what to expect when I arrived. What I found was an environment that was supportive and non-supportive. I was told at the university, don't worry about the community. You teach and you do research, and if you want to be promoted. I had never heard of tenure, didn't know what that was. But to be tenured, you had to do research, you had to teach, you had to do community involvement, you had several things you had to do, several areas. But I was told, don't worry about the community. Well, the community was what I wanted to do. And that's why I went into the community to find out what could I do as a professor at the university. I found out I was the only African American in the School of Education. When Dean Garcia interviewed me in St. Louis, I asked about the environment for African Americans in the San Bernardino area. He showed me pictures of the Black Culture Foundation and the parade and all these good things. And we had showed me a picture of Althea Waits, who was a music instructor at Cal State. That was in the spring. When I got here in the fall, Althea was gone. She was not tenured. She was not there. There was no other African American there, which kind of opened my eyes a little bit. So I figured I needed to get involved. And I attended an NAACP meeting, San Bernardino. Maurice Roberson, who was active at that area, told me, I said, what can I do in this area? And he said for me to look at the dropout rate. And I looked at the dropout rate. It was too high, too many African American kids particularly falling out of school. So I determined at that time I was going to open a school or some type of educational program to help the kids that were dropping out of school. And that's how I got started and it's a long story along the way, but that's how I got started. When I came to Cal State, many of my students had never had an African American teacher. So the expectation was that I would not be qualified because of what they may have heard. So I had to not only prove myself as qualified, but prove that I was better than. And this is what had been instilled in us as youngsters. You've got to prove you're better than. Because let me share, when my mother and dad decided they wanted to buy a house in town, they wanted to buy a house in town so we could go to school 9 months of the year. And when Mom was going around to real estate agents to try to find a house, one agent told her, Mr. Mose, all right, I have a picture of him, his ad right now, today. This gentleman told my mom, what you want a house for? And she said, so our children can go to school 9 months. He told her, you don't need no house. Your little nigger kids ain't gonna never amount to nothing no how. And those were his words. Those were my motivating words. Those were words that motivated Mom. You know, don't tell me I ain't gonna never amount to nothing just because of the color of my skin. So I determined then and there, whenever I can give a hand up, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to devote my energies to keeping kids in school and helping particularly the quote-unquote disadvantaged, although everybody's disadvantaged, so I don't really like that term, but that's what we designate people that need a little extra help.
What were the classes that you taught at Cal State?
I taught Introduction to Counseling. I was in the Counseling Education and program. So I taught Introduction to Counseling. One of my main classes, let me say, was cultural. I'm into cultural diversity. So I taught multicultural counseling to be sure that counselors who went out into the neighborhood and into the schools understood how important culture is to one's behavior, to one's achievement. So that for 15 years that I was on faculty at California State University, I taught multicultural counseling, whatever the term happened to be at the time. That was my favorite. Because then I took the counselors to be into the neighborhood. I required that they go into nonprofit organizations, communities, wherever they wanted to practice, hone their skills, but they had to go out into the community and practice before they actually got their degree and went out to impact somebody's life.
Speaking of cultural diversity, I am reminded of that time at the 99-cent store where they had those statues and black faces with big, thick red lips, and you were on a campaign to get those statues removed from the 99-cent store.
I'd forgotten that. Sure was. Yeah. I walked in this store and I saw these characters, what we see in the cartoons of black statues, big lips, red lips, and then we see eating watermelon and all this stuff. And I told them I wanted those statues out of that store. They didn't realize why. So I had to educate them. Because I would go in there and buy gifts to give our kids at this. I had established, incidentally, a community-based program called the PAL Center. And we were educating kids. We were tutoring them, giving them high school diplomas. We had adults getting GEDs and a whole 9 yards. So I would go in there and purchase things for my school. And I was not going to let them make a mockery out of my people. And so they didn't understand. They were from the Middle East someplace. And they didn't know the problems that we had in this country, cultural and inequities. So I had to educate them. And I did. And they removed them.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Now, you have mentioned the Provisional Accelerated PAL Center, which is a gift to the community. Tell me some of your challenges and some of your blessings that you have experienced at the PAL Center.
Challenges: the lack of money, the lack of funding to implement programs in the community. When I came to this area, I found that people weren't that into helping in the community. As far as there was no community-based educational program. There had been a couple of vocational, I remember Francis Grice and several had opened up the vocational programs. Yeah, but there wasn't too much as far as educational uplift is concerned. So when I ran into kids that didn't know how to read, and I was told to look at the dropout rate, then I decided to open a community-based organization. So I applied for nonprofit status. Didn't know anything about how to run or implement a program. But we went to several people, talked to several people, Lonzo Thompson Alvin Riggs helped me write a proposal because I found the only way I could do it would be to get some money back for writing a proposal.
Another legend, Belva Holder.
Belva Holder. When I first came to San Bernardino, Belva was one of the first people that I met. When I located a place to stay in Fontana, Belva came to take my landlords to Newport Beach on a trip, and they let me go because I had already settled in. And that's how I met Belva. So I used to go by Belva's house every day. She lived in San Bernardino. Almost every day when I'd go home, I'd eat fruit out of her backyard. And I told her my dream of wanting to open a school, educational program. And she said, you can use my building. I have a building that you can use. And it was a child care center on 19th Street, which had been a former child care center for her. And that's how I got started with the PAL Center.
On your
Belva
dream.
Holder's builder.
And to date, it's how many years old?
30, we've been continuously operating 31 years.
And have won every award possible.
Don't know
in
about
the Inland
the
Empire.
awards, but you know, the gratifying thing has been the number of people who have come through the PAL Center. They have gotten high school diplomas, thousands of people. They've gotten GEDs. We've had an ESL program. We've had a Safe Harbor program for homeless youth. We had Upward Bound program where we sent kids to college. We had Talent Search program where we worked with middle school kids and then sent them into Upward Bound and then into college. We've had a youth employment program from 1985. Every summer we hired young people and trained them and sent them on jobs. We've had the Child Care Center, we've had after-school programs, we've had all kinds of programs. At one time we had as many as 11 programs operating simultaneously at the PAL Center. At the PAL Center on the street corner in San Bernardino, California. Anti-drug program. I went to Washington, D.C. with our drug mobile. And I saw the idea for a drug mobile. So we had a drug mobile, anti-drug mobile, that traveled around the neighborhood. We went to Pasadena. We were showing the evils of drug and gang involvement. So we've been very active, very productive, impacted thousands, 100,000 lives.
Like I've said, a beautiful gift to the community.
A gift to the community.
So we're moving forward.
Okay.
And then you get the letter and the acknowledgement that they are building a brand new elementary school after you. What was the feeling?
Indescribable. I really cannot describe it. What happened was that one of my colleagues, George Lee, who worked at the PAL Center for years, told me that there were new schools being built. He said, Dr. Henry, can I submit your name? I said, nope, do not submit my name. I don't like politics. Can't stand politics, don't want to be involved. And he looked at me. He didn't say anything. But I found out later he just ignored me. So he did submit my name.
George often did.
Which he often did. He submitted my name, and I was in a board meeting, staff meeting. Lawrence Hampton was the director at that time. He was conducting a meeting. Somebody walked in, Davis walked in and whispered in Lawrence's ear. And Lawrence said, I'm pleased to announce that the San Bernardino Unified School District has just named a school, elementary school, the Dr. Mildred Dalton Henry Elementary School. You could have bought me for 2 cents. I mean, I don't know how to describe the feeling. I was thrilled, and yet I was honored. And it was humble. I was humble. Yeah, it was a time of humility to think that any contributions I had made merited or warranted that type of honor in anybody's eyes. And that's how I found out, and I checked it with the president of the board, Daniel Tillman. I emailed him and said, what is this? And he told me, yes, that is in fact the school board had named the school after me, and I would get details. The school, when they had the grand opening, another important thing is it was on old Route 66. And the chairman at that time, not chairman, the 6th Ward Alderman, Ricky Van Johnson, made it a point of saying at the groundbreaking that this was historical in that context too, that this school named after this African American lady was on the old Route 66, a historical journey that was popularized by the musician Nat King Cole. Get your kicks on old 66, Route 66. I remember singing that as a child. And so it was really significant that Ricky brought this up. And, yes, humbling experience.
Quite an honor.
And every Sunday when I leave church, my membership is the St. Paul AME Church about 3 blocks away. And every Sunday when I leave church, I drive by there.
And still can't believe it.
You can't believe it. And it's been almost 2 years now. But every Sunday I drive by and see the name, see the campus, make sure it looks good, make sure everything is going well. And the kids are doing a fantastic job. Let me say this. I had a principal. I told the superintendent, I want a good principal. I am African American. I'd like to have an African American principal, if possible. I told Danny Tillman, told school board, everybody. As it turned out, they did appoint Dr. Funches, Marcus Funches, as the principal, an African American male, who did a fantastic job getting that school off the ground. The youngsters are not called students, they are called scholars. It's the mindset that has been developed that is critical. They say, they have a moniker, it's, I am smart, I am great, I am smart, I am intelligent, I am full of greatness. And they repeat this, and they act it, and they're just beautiful. It's a beautiful school, and has been a wonderful addition to the community. So I, at this point, would like to thank Dr. Funches, would like to thank the San Bernardino School District and anybody who has had any part in naming the school, in my growth, in my coming to San Bernardino and being able to implement these programs. And in my upbringing as a child, going way back where I had these mentors and teachers that told me, you can, you must, and you must achieve. Mm-hmm. So this is the environment that we came up in, that you have to reach out and touch somebody's hand, make this world a better place. You can, and that's what we did.
I know that in your office previously, you've
Mm-hmm.
had that picture of Martin Luther King, and then you've had that legendary picture of the woman with the ironing board, ironing. You have met kings and queens, and you have met legends.
Yes.
Who has inspired you over the years? I know there must be a wealth, but also there must be a solid foundation of people who have really inspired you to be the best that you could be.
I brought with me today a picture of a car, my dad's car. My mom is in the front seat, there's a couple in the back seat, and on the running board are their friends. They were teachers, they were entrepreneurs, they were the motivators that we watched, that we saw, that showed us, it's not just you do as I say do, but you can do as I do. They went to school, they made sure that we became. When in my office, yes, when I have on the wall a picture of Thurgood Marshall, Dr. King, others that I watch and that are motivators for me as I follow their lives. And I think if they could do and achieve with what they had, the limited resources they have, what excuses do we have for not achieving? So it's kind of hard. Mary McLeod Bethune was one of my big motivators because I thought if this lady can start a school with $1.50 and getting clothing and boxes and stuff from the dump to set up a school with these little girls and then expand it to become Bethune College, what excuse did I have for not being able to make a difference in my neighborhood? So I've had a variety of motivators. One of my biggest things right now, which keeps me motivated, there is the song, of course, that we had to learn, Lift Every Voice and Sing. The Black National Anthem, it was called. And we had to sing this at every assembly. This was our motivator. We sang, "Oh, say, can you see?" We'd sing the Star Spangled Banner. But at the end of the assembly, we had to stand and sing, "Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring." You had to learn the Lift Every Voice and Sing. That was a motivator for me. And if anyone sees that video now, it shows all of these civil rights activities that have happened during the years. All of this is motivating me, and has motivated me to achieve. So and at the end of this video comes President Barack Obama. He walks out with his family, and that's the biggest self-esteem builder that I can think of. I get chills every time I think of this, when I look at from whence we have come, and those videos showing all of the trials and tribulations, and at the end we see this President, Barack Obama, and his beautiful family walking out and waving. That's the biggest motivator for me at this point.
But mention briefly regarding that picture that you have of the
lady ironing.
The elderly African-American woman ironing, because that's like an iconic picture, huge, in your office for years.
And that kept my feet on the ground, as we say. Because I have ironed as a child. I had to iron. I didn't have an iron I could plug into the wall. I had this cast iron you set on the coals and heated it. And then you ironed. And when it cooled off, you set it back on the coals. And you take it off and you iron. And that picture, when I saw that picture, I thought, I must have it. So I got that picture, framed it, put it on my wall, and today it hangs on my wall in my house. It goes with me because it keeps me grounded. Yes, I've ironed. I do it. I washed clothes with the old rubber-dub-dub. I churned, making butter and milk. You know, we didn't go to the store and buy no butter, a pound of butter. No, we made our butter, or we made it into a pound. And then we sold it if we needed. I went to get the chickens. Yeah, I raised little bitties, we call them. Little bitty babies, and then they grew up into hens, and you got the chicken eggs, and you sold them. And we had a smokehouse on the farm where you killed all your hogs. We killed the hogs and the beef and all. Then we would smoke it in the smokehouse and keep this meat all year long. And all around the walls, Mom had canned. She canned everything. We went to the orchard and got fruit. We canned all of our fruit. We canned all of our vegetables. We had a big garden. We canned everything. We ate everything. We didn't go to the store and buy. We preserved everything we had. So that's all part of this culture. That's why I say I've been through so much. It's hard
Yes,
to tell.
I know. So, having traveled all over the world, having fulfilled some of your dreams, have raised your children, have educated a community for decades, what is it when someone views this video and they take a look at you and they say, yes, she has fulfilled her legacy? What is it that you have wanted your legacy to be?
My legacy, wow. I want people to know the effect self-esteem has on achievement and on people. When I went to Ghana, West Africa, I was so impressed because I felt, when I stood in the castles and saw where I stood by that door of no return, where my ancestors were marched out of the slave dungeons, and down to that ocean and carried across and lost their lives in the passage and all. When I know my history and I see where we are today, I have no choice but to carry forward the theme that we come from kings and queens. We have an obligation to work with our young people and to let them know that they have an obligation to pass on our heritage and to let them know that they are somebody important. Don't be out there shooting and killing and destroying. You are from kings and queens. You have a legacy to uphold. That's what I want. I want my legacy to be passed on to young people, know that they have a legacy to become, to achieve, to be the best that they can be. That is what I want. That's how I felt when I went to Africa and saw my heritage. I stood 10 feet tall because I looked at, I'm a queen, I'm a descendant of a queen, an African queen. Mm-hmm. Not what the movies told me. See, when I went to the movies, to these separate movie houses, they had these pictures of Tarzan. Tarzan could swing out of a tree and beat up a whole tribe of my people. As one little white man could beat a whole tribe of my people. When I went to Africa, and when I found out, and I had black teachers that told me, no, different. The school books that the blacks provided me showed me that there were achievers, black achievers. There were kings and queens. This is where I came from. So this is what I want to be shared. Our young people, and everybody knows, I'm a queen. And I had to find that out by people teaching me who also were kings and queens. That is my legacy. That's the legacy I want to pass on. When I look at my children at the school, they're scholars. They are called scholars. They're not called students. They are scholars, and they're making a mark on the world.
And you want them to dare to do
the impossible. That's my theme. Do the impossible. You can do it. So dare it. Go ahead and do it. Tell you can't? Do it anyway. Dare to do the impossible.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Henry, so much for this interview.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. That's what it's about. Thank you. Keep on keeping on.